Hello and welcome. I am Dr. Lara May, a clinical pharmacist specializing in functional medicine, as well as a certified yoga teacher and Reiki master. I run a truly integrative health coaching practice encompassing functional medicine lab testing, yoga and meditation, and a sprinkling of Reiki energy medicine. Join me here on Light Body Radio to break through your health plateau and come into alignment with your natural vitality. Hello and welcome to Light Body Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Lara May, and today I have with me an Ayurvedic practitioner that specializes in sleep coaching. So I'm super excited. This is going to be a really interesting conversation. I will let her tell you her name because it's a beautiful name and I don't want to butcher it. Hello, what is your name?
Hi, so I am Vytaute Vytaute.
Beautiful, beautiful. So she is an Ayurvedic sleep coach on a mission to help those who struggle with sleep to recalibrate their sleep cycles and regain their energy. Having herself suffered from insomnia for 6 years, she now uses ancient Ayurvedic wisdom and yoga nidrā to guide herself and others to the realms of rest. She advocates reorganizing our daily routines in a way that leaves more space for rest and self-care. It is through slowing down that we are able to tend to our bodies in an impactful way, enjoy optimal health, and live our best lives. Vytaute lives in Belgium with her husband and 2 kids, and when she's not geeking out on the ancient Vedic sciences, you can find her hanging out in the forest, sipping chai, and taking care of her little ones. Welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm so excited to talk about this today.
Thank you, Lara. I'm really happy to be here today. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course.
So just a quick introduction about how Ayurveda came to be in my life. I first discovered it when I stumbled upon a podcast that I really, really loved. And that was, I think, mid 2018. So my son, I have 2 kids, and my younger son, he was still a baby. And I remember I was still on my maternity leave, and I discovered this podcast, and I really binge listened to it, and it was called the Simple Ayurveda podcast. I still recommend it today to everyone that I meet as a great resource. And it was like I was listening to it, and it was like everything that was in it was already something that was known to me on some level. Everything that I was learning about Ayurveda seemed to make so much sense. And it was just like a shoe that fit for me. And I dove straight into it. I signed up for this introductory program. Then I signed up for a 300-hour program to become an Ayurvedic health counselor. And and it just kind of really picked up from there. And the beautiful thing that started happening once I started applying Ayurveda in my life is that I started seeing cause and effect in my life between the actions and the outcome. And it kind of like started changing my life. Like I started to introduce little changes. Little by little, like I am like crafting this crazy life of my dreams, which is really amazing.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So let's start by talking about the role of sleep
Mhm.
in our physical and mental health, and specifically in the context of Ayurveda. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so maybe I know that you did already before several episodes with an Ayurvedic practitioner. So
Mhm.
your listeners will probably know what Ayurveda is, but in case somebody new is tuning in, um, I can just really quickly say that it's Ayurveda is an ancient comprehensive health system that originated in India a long, long, long time ago, about 5,000 years ago. And it's very holistic in character. So it means that it looks at a patient from a global perspective. So we take into account their diet, their sleep, how they spend their energy in the day. Also, their emotional well being. Is somebody going through important changes right now? Because all these things will add up to give a certain health environment, in your body and your mind. And so sleep is one of the key pillars of health in Ayurveda. It's the one that everything stands on, like our health stands on. And your listeners might be familiar with the concepts of yin and yang, which are used very much in Chinese traditional medicine. Ayurveda has a similar idea. There are two like cosmic principles of Soma and Agni. So Soma is like the nectar, which would be the yin principle, and Agni is the fire principle. So everything that denotes, action, the doing, the accomplishing, the running, all the yang things in our life. So sleep is that which gives us the soma, right? It is that in which we rejuvenate and we get our nectar, because everything else that happens usually in our day is all Agni. It's a lot of yang. We live in a very yang dominated society. So, from the Ayurvedic perspective, sleep is our chance to you know to rejuvenate and have a rest from all the fiery things that are going on. And modern science, like now there are more and more studies being done on sleep, and there are already like 17,000 studies that have been that have been published. And they show that sleep is the single most effective thing that we can do to reset our brain and our body's health. Out of everything that we can do, taking supplements, exercising, eating right, sleep is the single most effective thing. So if we need to pick one thing, it's the sleep. And this can be explained so beautifully because it just makes so much sense. Like, not only sleep is needed for every single biological function in our body. There isn't a single biological function that doesn't benefit from a good night's sleep. But also, sleep makes us less impulsive. So, for example, that goes for the choices that we make throughout the day. We can be eating all the right things, but if we are sleep deprived, eventually we will crack and we will start being impulsive in the foods that we choose or the beverages that we choose. Also, when it comes to mental health, it's the same. Like, as a parent, I can certainly relate. When I was sleep deprived, sometimes it still happens that I have a bad night and I am sleep deprived. My reactions to what is happening around me will be very different to the times that I am fully rested. So this just makes a lot of sense to me. And yeah, another thing, Ayurveda teaches that good sleep plays an important role in us feeling satisfied as human beings. So it's again, if we go back to these principles of Soma and Agni, fire is always burning and it always wants more. And it's like a human being as well. You know, when we're doing a lot of things, we feel like it's never enough. It's never enough, you know? And so sleep and rest during the day as well, moments of rest, if we schedule them in, that can beautifully balance out that constant wanting more. Because I guess we can all agree that being in that state where things are never enough, never good enough, is terrible. It certainly doesn't make us very happy. And actually, from the scientific perspective as well, lack of sleep has shown to suppress a hormone that is called leptin, which is responsible for us feeling satiated. I wonder if I'm saying that right. Yeah.
Yes,
When we're
satiated.
feeling
Yes.
full. Yeah.
Yes.
So basically, the less sleep we get, the more we will want to eat. So I mean, you know, Ayurveda says, has this idea that sleep helps us feel satisfied human beings, and science also shows that that is indeed true.
I love it.
So
That's fascinating.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think, you know, it's so true what you said about, you know, especially in the Western world, we're so go, 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 you know, 24 usable hours in every single day. And I know for myself, I worked, you know, a graveyard shift for about 10 years total, all in all. And I was in complete denial about the impact that had on my health, on my body, on, you know, my mental state. And so it's so important for us to pay homage and give attention to our sleep. Um, so yeah, it's just I feel like this is such a good timely conversation. Um, and it's so crazy that we've gotten so used to like just living in a state of sleep deprivation and that that's completely socially acceptable when like we know that it's dangerous to, you know, that we put our lives at risk and other lives at risk when we are not well rested, whether that's just as for something as simply as like driving on the street or even, you know, like showing up to work, depending on, you know, like what we do. Like sleep deprivation is dangerous both for our personal well-being but also for those around us. So I think this has a lot of social implications also.
Yeah, just to illustrate this point, when you spoke of the danger, there was a funny anecdote that I remember from a book I was reading, that apparently the World Guinness Book of Records, they will not accept a record for the most sleep deprived person. Like they don't even allow that because it's too dangerous to be, you know, reaching for that goal, to
Yeah.
be featured as a winner of that, because
Yeah.
likely the winner will be dead. So it's just
Well,
to illustrate, like they will let people, you know, jump off buildings, but they will not let people deprive themselves of sleep to reach a
yeah.
record. So
I think they actually use sleep deprivation as like an interrogation and torture tool
yeah.
also. So like if that tells you anything that we can unfortunately, you know, like treat our enemies in such a way with one tool, sleep deprivation, I think that's, you know, speaks a lot as well. Um so yeah, so how can we start to sort of come back to establishing a good sleep hygiene? That's what we call it in the, you know, allopathic world, sleep hygiene. So it's such a clinical term. It's so cold. um, but so how do we start to create that for ourselves? What do you suggest? And then I definitely at some point also want to talk about yoga nidra. So
yeah.
we'll come back to that too. So but let's start with sleep hygiene and then we'll go to yoga nidra.
Yeah, sure. So, Ayurveda loves sleep hygiene. It's not actually the term that is used there, but I'm also using this term more and more because I feel like people in our society are more open to that term, even though what is meant by that term is exactly what Ayurveda is asking for us to do if we want to sleep well. So the first the first thing would be to have a daily rhythm. That is very, very important, and that goes for the same as for your digestion as for sleep. Eating at fixed hours every day and going to bed at a fixed hour every day. That is incredibly, incredibly important. Because our bodies really love structure. They thrive when there's structure. They like knowing what is coming next because then they can prepare. So for our biological function, that is really, really key. And yeah, so going to bed at the same time, eating at the same time, that having this framework really, really helps in Ayurvedic terms to rein in the element of air, which is represented by the Vata dosha. Your readers who have heard a little bit about Ayurveda will know that Vata dosha is like wind. So it's very mobile, it's very quick, and it's the same dosha that, when out of balance, gives you insomnia and gives you anxiety. So when that is happening in your body, having a daily rhythm is very, very helpful because it's like a container to contain all that extra wind, and it really is very grounding. So that's the first thing. Another thing that I see a lot when I talk to people who are sleep deprived is the consumption of caffeine and watching your intake of caffeine. There is so much hidden caffeine that people are not really aware of. So they will typically think of coffee, but there are also energy drinks. A surprising amount of people are still drinking those.
Oh yeah. Way too much, especially in the US.
Yeah. And especially sometimes I'm working also with women who work longer shifts, and unfortunately they kind of feel like they really need it to make it through the end of their shift, and that's very that can be quite detrimental. So it's often very helpful to work with somebody who can craft a solution that that would give you the energy, but would not rob you of your resources in a way, because that is what happens when we consume caffeine. It's like living on credit. We get the illusion that we have all this extra energy, but it's only the illusion that we have it. It's not actually, like, our body does not have the energy, but we end up spending it, right? Because then we're like, oh, we're stimulated, and then we can like do all those things really fast, and we use up our inner resources, and then we just become depleted a lot faster. And another thing to mention about caffeine is that caffeine has, in like a healthy adult human body, it has a half-life of about 5 hours. So it means that if you have an afternoon cup of coffee, by the time you're going to bed, you are done processing, eliminating just half of the caffeine that you consumed. So another half is still doing its job, stimulating you further. So especially if you have trouble falling asleep, then really keep your afternoon caffeine free. And the same goes for green tea as well, and black tea. They have less caffeine, but still, and dark chocolate as well.
Yes. That one is so I did a panchakarma cleanse back in September, and
Mhm,
I've been caffeine free ever since.
mhm.
And I thought it was going to be a lot harder than it was, but I gave myself like a week prior to the panchakarma to start weaning myself off. And so then during the week long experience, there wasn't any caffeine available anyway. So
Yeah.
then, like, once I had completed it and I came home, I'm like, okay, well, I just want to see how my life goes without it. And yeah, I do feel a lot better. I feel more even keel.
Mhm,
And it's so funny, like that we exist on caffeine for probably so many years of our life that we forget what it's like to be without it, and that we can feel good throughout the day, that we don't have to have the peaks and then the crashes. And
mhm.
um, so what would you suggest if someone did want to experiment with weaning off of caffeine? Are there other and let's say like maybe there still is like that afternoon slump, or maybe for like someone like someone in healthcare that works those longer shifts, or maybe even fighting fires or whatever it is, you know, when we have those slumps, is there something that we can do that's not caffeine that would still give us a little bit of endurance for the rest of our shift or the day or whatever?
Yeah. So, for the long shifts, I'm sorry, I'd forgotten your first question. Um, so it
It
was the
was
long.
it. Yeah, what can we do? Is there like something that we can do instead of caffeine that would help us like
Yeah, the weaning off. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So the weaning off, it really depends. There are people who are in the camp of, I want to cut everything cold turkey. I want to go off it, and I don't want to, I don't want to tempt myself. And then there are people who are really attached to it that will say, like for them, cutting everything off at once is very traumatic, especially if their body is also used to receiving a lot of caffeine daily. So then I advise to either start first, always start with the afternoon, because that is what is the most detrimental for sleep. So I will, for example, ask if they're used to having 3 cups of coffee per day. So then I will ask them to start by cutting one, the latest one they're having in the afternoon. Another option can be make half cups. So actually having the same amount of cups per day, but reducing the dose to having half a cup, and then maybe a little bit less, and then maybe just, like they drink in Italy, the ristretto, but of normal coffee. um, but for some people, cutting everything at once is more doable. So you can also try and test it, whichever way works for you best. And then when it comes to longer shifts, what can be really, really effective is practicing yoga nidra before your shift.
Oh, that's interesting. Say more about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, and actually, this is in relation to caffeine. I mean, we can kind of jump into the yoga nidra from here,
Yeah.
because often people resort to coffee in this afternoon slump. And what I started doing when I started using yoga nidra as a tool to help my sleep is that instead of afternoon coffee, I would have a yoga nidra session. So it takes just a little bit longer than it would take you to drink your cup of coffee. So you can have a recording of 15 minutes. And that will actually replenish your resources, and it will give you enough energy. It will energize you in a much deeper way than a coffee would. And so if you have a very long shift ahead of you, it would be great if you could factor in like a yoga nidra practice before, or even if you have time, like for a break during your shift, that would be perfect. They actually started doing that with pilots. It wasn't yoga nidra, but it was another type of micro. It was, I think, a micro nap that they were testing. So with pilots who were boarding a flight that was super long, they found in a study that if they would have like a preventive nap, they called it a preventive nap, they would be much better. Like they would last much better throughout the flight and would remain much more energetic and alert at the end of the flight. Whereas if they wait until the moment where they're already in the slump and where they're already tired, that would be less beneficial. So kind of like having a preventive nap, preventive yoga nidra,
Yeah.
although that's not a thing, but
I really like that though. Because, and I will even say, I think this is a great transition too, because I think some people would even say, well, it's really hard for me to nap. Like it's hard for me to fall asleep. It's hard for me to take a nap. But that's one of the things that I love about Yoga Nidra too, is that because of how it like talks down and you're getting into intentional relaxation, it really is really powerful to help turn that brain off and allow your body to relax. So tell us what Yoga Nidra is.
So Yoga Nidra is translated from Sanskrit. It just means yogic sleep. And what it is, it's a deep sleep state with awareness retained. So basically, we put your body into a deep sleep state. Your body is sleeping, but your mind is awake. You're awake. You understand what is happening. And this is done. Yoga Nidra is actually an ancient and a very advanced yogic technique. So it should be understood as such. Like it's not per se like a nap or a tool to cure insomnia. That's not what it is. It's actually a very advanced yogic technique. However, it is very, very accessible to everyone, which is why it's wonderful that it is accessible to people who are not even into yoga, and especially to people who have lost sleep, who are sleep deprived or insomniacs. The beauty of it is that you lie down, you relax, and you listen to the voice. That is all you have to do. And it's that voice will kind of guide you through a sort of a body scan. It's a bit more nuanced than a body scan. It's done in a very intentional way. But your mind will remain alert. Most people, when I use Yoga Nidra with my clients, most of them fall asleep because most of them are sleep deprived. Because I work mostly with people who are sleep deprived. And that's okay. It's not how Yoga Nidra was meant. But if that happens to you, that's not a problem. And usually Yoga Nidra, a practice of Yoga Nidra, will give us whatever we need the most in this moment. So if it happens to be a dream or or just a very nice nap, that's okay. Like you're getting all the benefits that your body and mind need the most. Yeah, so that's the beauty of this practice. What happens to us when we are in a Yoga Nidra state is that our brain activity can go to the slowest and most rejuvenating brainwave states. So that would be the delta waves, which are when we are in this when our brain is in this deep sleep state, that is when most healing happens. And that's why when we emerge from this yoga nidra state, we feel like we have rested super, super well. So that's why I said that a short session of yoga nidra will rejuvenate you and energize you way more than a cup of coffee. It's a totally different kind of energy. Um, yeah. And
Yeah, I was just going to say I can completely attest to that because I started doing yoga nidra on my breaks at work. So I still
mhm,
work a few days in the hospital, and our shifts are anywhere from 10 to 12 hours. And so, like you said, it doesn't have to be long, just 15 minutes, but I come out of that 15 minutes feeling like so refreshed, so rejuvenated, and more present, and really, able to sort of like move through the rest of my day without this sluggish feeling, without that feeling of the sleep deprivation, or even like sometimes when you're sleep deprived and then you caffeinate, you like, I don't know about all of you out there, but I sometimes feel like an out of body thing that
mhm.
happens.
Yeah, that's
Like I
your
know
vata
I'm
has gone too
awake.
far.
Yeah, like I know like I'm just like moving through the day and going through the motions, but I don't really feel like in my body sometimes when
Mm.
in the past when I would live that way on a consistent basis. So yeah, it can be a really powerful tool to start to implement into your daily life, especially in the middle of the day. So yeah, I definitely would say try it out. Go for it.
Yeah, I think for people who are sleep deprived, the best time to practice it is either in the morning if you have a chance, if you had a bad night, that's a really good time if you can squeeze in 15 minutes before you start your day, because then your day will just be different. Like you will not feel this, you will not have this feeling that, your day should be written off and feeling like a complete train wreck before the day even started, or this early afternoon. That is a great time to practice it. My personal experience um, showed me that practicing yoga nidra in the evening is not the best for me and for some of my clients, because that gives you this extra energy. Um, so then it can kind of sometimes mess your sleep pattern a little bit in the evening, in terms of being tired at 10 p.m., which is my time when I am always trying to, be in bed. That's my fixed bedtime. But you can try different options and see if that works for you. If you manage to come out of the nidra state feeling just the relaxation without this extra energy, that could work in the evening as well.
Do you think it's a tool that could be used for those that have a hard time going to falling asleep? Do you think yoga nidra could be something they could use and then just if ideally it helps them fall asleep and then they just stay asleep, hopefully, is the goal,
Yeah,
right?
actually, I know people who use yoga nidra recordings in the middle of night wakings when they can't go to bed. That never really worked for me because I don't like having a device near me. And I don't want to put on a screen but if that works for you, that's great. Um, I think once you regularly practice yoga nidra, it really helps you to kind of focus your thoughts and direct the influx of thoughts, which can be really helpful if your mind is going like dun 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 and you can't go to sleep. So I think by doing this practice regularly, you're developing a very important skill which will help you um, with your falling asleep, with the anxiety that and the influx of thoughts that sometimes visits during that time.
Yeah. Do you use any herbs or any adaptogens with your clients in terms of helping them sort of, mm, I don't know what the word is, adapt to to being someone that's like embracing sleep instead of the alternative?
Yeah, so I really love the herbalism part of Ayurveda. I really, really enjoyed studying it. However, the way I was taught was that herbs come as an auxiliary. It's never the first thing that I would suggest to my client, because the first thing is that they implement a routine, they work on their eating habits, on their mindful eating, on their sleep. If I see that, for example, if somebody is like constipated and they have chronic constipation for many, many years, and we implement the lifestyle changes, and I see that month after month it doesn't get that much better, then I will call in the herbs as an auxiliary. But I will, because often humans are funny, because sometimes if we know that there's a herb that we can take that will make it better, we don't want to do the work.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that's part of our culture too, especially Western culture. Like, oh, there's this thing I can take instead of changing all the things that I need to change that will completely reverse whatever is bothering me. I'm just going to take this herb, this pill, whatever, and it'll fix it.
Yeah,
And then I don't have to
yeah,
change.
exactly. There is this amazing combination of herbs. You probably know it, called trifala. Yeah, you know it. It's
Yes. Oh yes.
for your listeners. It's an Ayurvedic formula for constipation, and basically, if you have some, usually the next morning you will have your bowel movement. And so it's funny. I also sometimes catch myself thinking, yeah, maybe I will have popcorn tonight, and then I can just take some trifala in the evening. It's this like human mind that always, when it knows there is an easy solution, we tend to. So this is to illustrate that I'm very conservative with herbs. I don't
I
give
like it.
them out easily.
Yeah. Well, and I think that also illustrates too just like the different approach that Ayurveda takes when it comes to rebalancing us, because that's really, to me, a lot of what Ayurveda is understanding, I think it's called prakriti, which
Mm,
is like the nature of your doshas, like from when you were born, essentially, right? So your
yeah,
baseline.
yeah,
And then throughout the years we become out of balance in certain ways. So to me, Ayurveda is like restoring balance from
hmm,
this very holistic perspective. And yes, like you said, we do that by changing our actions, our food, our lifestyle first, because that's what created the imbalance to begin with. So
exactly. Yeah.
so yes, herbs can be used as a tool, but it's just interesting that they're not the very first number one tool.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes they're really needed, but in my practice, it's not the first resort.
Yeah, no, I think
Yeah.
that's great. All right, well, we're coming up to the end of the episode. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you want to bring forward and shed some light on?
Um, I think just a more general invitation to kind of evaluate a little bit the yin and the yang in our lives. And if you notice that you're too much in the yang, too much in the Agni, and too much running the story of I'm not doing enough, I'm not this or that enough, and I don't have enough, then calling in a little bit, calling in more of the soma, more of the yin. And there are many practices to do that. But yoga nidra can be a very powerful tool to bring in more of that slow, non-doing, still quality to your day if you're feeling that you are living in the rush and you don't like it. So that's just my invitation for everyone to try it. It's very easily accessible. There are plenty of resources for free, and everyone should know about it.
Awesome. So tell people where they can find you.
Sure. So people can find me on leanonayurveda.com. That's my website, and then on Instagram, my handle is leanonayurveda as well.
Okay. And all that will be in the show notes. So if any of you are out there looking for it, you can go to drlaramay.com/podcast to find this episode and all the show notes. So yes, well, thank you so much. Today was fantastic and enlightening, and I really enjoyed it. So yeah, we appreciate your time and your expertise so much. And thank you so much. Is there anything else?
No, thank you, Lara, for having me. This was a very fun conversation. I really, really love talking about it, and I hope your listeners enjoyed it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.